when I met Dom, he was just so different in every aspect. He had told me that he does therapy once a month, and he has for like 20 years. And I went to therapy with him.
Early in the relationship?
Oh, like 2 weeks in.
Most people would be like,
no,
Peace.
Absolutely not.
I was like, I love this. I was like, what? Yes, yes, yes. First of all, I'm the girl that loves love and loves relationship. Like everybody always like, what do you love more than anything? And I'm like, love. It's just always been who I am. So I'm so stoked to have you here. So stoners, I'm so excited for the book. Yes, our fans that watch this are called our stoners.
I love it.
So yes.
I love the stoners. What's up, stoners?
The stoners are incredible. And they are faithful, and they are awesome, and they love love so much. So I'm going to start. Okay, you know, stoners, I'm always the one that is just completely off my rocker and just laughing and being so silly. But today, Brandy had another appointment, a conflict. And so here I am being the professional one. And so I'm super stoked because we have on a relationship expert, Mark Groves. And I'm just so excited because he just came out with this book, Liberated Love. Okay. First of all, I love the story of you and your wife because you guys broke up, got back together, and are now married. So I just want to hear a little bit of your background and like how the book came about.
Well, first, thanks for having me. What's up, stoners?
Yes.
When you said you love love, I was laughing because my brother used to say to me when I was in like junior high, I think, he'd be like, you love love. Like he was making fun of me, and the irony now that I talk about it. So yeah, my wife and I, my background in terms of what made me passionate about relationship is actually in my 20s and in my early 30s, I was in sales. And so I loved studying how to change behavior, how to get someone to switch from one product to another. So my like interest in human behavior was really from how do I manipulate human behavior.
Got it.
Right. So I'm undoing the karmic path of that. But I went through a breakup in my late 20s, and I thought to myself, why am I so good at every relationship but romantic ones? Why am I so good at talking about everything but my feelings? Like that's not a skill set issue. There's something else going on.
Yeah.
So I started to study romantic relationships, and I was instantly just started to think like, why did no one teach me this? Like this is the most important skill set we will ever need to learn in our lives. And yet it's not a class in school.
I think you're right. I think it would be so great to have someone teach you, you know, what is good in relationships and really just everything about love.
Like how to handle conflict and come out on the other side with more understanding of one another, how to pick good partners, how to maintain long-term connection. I mean, the greatest predictor of your health, and this is from the Harvard well-being study, is the quality of your relationships. So not your cholesterol, not your blood pressure, but actually the quality of, and not just romantic, any relationship. So you don't have to be in a romantic relationship to get the benefits of relationship. And when I started to study them, I thought to myself, like, why do we shame people when their relationship ends? Why do we exile them from communities or churches or community or families? And at the time, I'd gotten engaged, and then when that engagement ended is what made me study them. And I thought to myself, I've never felt more connected to myself in my life, and yet I feel most judged by the people around me, or a lot of them. And that led me to start writing about what I was learning through my own mistakes, my own bad choices in relationship, poor ways I showed up in relationship. And I think just through that writing and people relating to my story and relating to my vulnerabilities, but I really started to recognize that the way that I could heal the things I was ashamed of or uncertain about was to share the wisdom that I learned through it. And that started to do well. And then I started an Instagram, and that started to do well. Then I started a podcast, and that started to do well. And at the same time, I was sort of like bridging my old job in sales. I left that around the time I started my Instagram account, which I started because I went through a breakup. And the woman who I broke up with, she ran social media companies or accounts for companies. She was like, "You should start an Instagram." I was like, "Ah, that's for photographers, or whatever." And then when we broke up, I was like, "I'm gonna reclaim and start an Instagram." So, I think breakups are probably the most potent vehicle for change.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. Like I always say to people when they're going through, don't waste this. Like this is an opportunity for you to change all these patterns that you generally inherited. And most of us are not taught how to do love well, which doesn't mean we can't do love well. It's a skill set. There's a competency to being good at relationship. And what birthed the book is, for a long time I've been writing, my wife also a writer, but we really saw through our own story, we started to see a whole different layer of relating, that here were two people who loved each other, genuinely, cared about the skill set of relating,
Absolutely.
and we couldn't make it work. And it was the most loving thing to do, to depart. And that changed a lot of stories for both of us.
Yeah.
Just through the experience of still, when we ended, there was so much love and respect and care present. And we thought, why aren't we taught how to do this? Like, imagine how much healing is possible for families and people if it isn't about detesting the other person or making them suffer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And like I'm just remarried.
Congratulations.
In
And happy
August.
belated.
Thank you. But I was in a marriage for 28 years from the time I was like 24. I met my first husband. And I look back and like I was so afraid to leave.
Mhm.
Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of all of it, just fear.
Mhm.
And I look back now and I'm just like, it's the same thing you're saying is like, there's so much shame in it.
Mhm.
And this relationship is so different. And like, I'm glad you started an Instagram because I think I kind of despise social media, but like really through people like you, I'm like, oh, and between my relationship now, this is how it's supposed to work.
Right.
Like, this is what it's supposed to be. You can set boundaries, and boundaries are really, really good, and people really respect you for them. And I don't know, it's changed everything in not only my relationship, but myself. And I don't know, it's so crazy to me. Like, I'll get to it in the book, a lot of your don'ts. And like, I'm going to get to that right now. I did every don't. I did every don't for so long.
We wrote it, so we've done some of the
Okay,
don'ts
yeah.
ourselves. Yeah. This is a don't recovery group.
I'm the most codependent person ever.
Hey, there's opportunity for interdependence then.
Yeah, that's what I'm really trying to go through. Trying to control others via emotional manipulation. That was not me, but the one that it is me is going along to get along.
Yeah.
I've done that I still do it in every relationship I have, except with my now husband. Like,
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And feeling like you're not free to leave. I think so many people feel like they're not free to leave. You have kids, there's just so much. Okay, this is really me, relying on other humans to save you or fix you. I rely on someone to do that, but I also want to fix anyone in my life. I think I can heal or fix them. So being afraid to change, huge problem. Denial of what's really going on. I think that is so huge, and things that we all do is like, I had this picture of what I thought it could be if I fixed that person, and that was just never happening.
Yeah, that's a pretty normal, when we're in childhoods or experiences where maybe we had a parent who had an addiction issue, anger issue, maybe they left. There's a beautiful desire that's born from that to want to love the possibility of that parent. Kids, when they're growing up and they have a family or a system that's not reliable or toxic or whatever, they have two choices. They can either see that the parent themselves are flawed or see themselves as children as flawed. But to see a parent as flawed is too much of an existential crisis for a
Totally.
kid. So what they do is they make the failures of the environment failures about themselves. And so they think if they can change themselves, they can change the environment. If I just become enough, if I take care of their needs, if I walk on eggshells. So I think for, everyone watching or listening, stoners, it's like if you relate to any of those things that you're saying, it comes from a beautiful place, and you recognize that the intention is positive. It's just as an adult trying to create relationships where safety is predicated on self-abandonment, on trying to take care of others. Like ultimately, it's a superpower to be able to attune and intuit other people's needs, right? To
Yeah,
guess them, try to fix everything.
totally.
And it's like, if I can help you, then you can't leave me.
Totally.
Yeah. Look, we all do till we don't. And so we want to make sure we're not shaming the behavior because it came from a kid's need to, play a role in a family. But, it's only when two adults are willing to say, hey, like we probably do stuff to each other that is wounding us in familiar ways.
Yeah.
Why don't we use the wounding experiences to actually grow and change and heal, which is a totally different perspective. Like when I was 17, no one was saying, hey, date that woman so that you can learn how to grow and change. I was not a chance. I was like, she can grow and change. I'm good.
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel like just now for me, like I think what you said is like when you do have a breakup of any kind, like I hate being uncomfortable as we all do, but I truly believe that is actually why I've had such a growth period in my life. Like I don't know that I would have ever stepped back and really looked at myself and seen. I mean, like you said, maybe from being adopted because my parents were so amazing, but I think I always wanted to be perfect because and I'm kind of just realizing this through therapy now is like, I don't want you to leave. Like, I've already been like abandoned.
How old were you when you were adopted?
I was just a baby, but I think that I was like but my mom told me very early I was adopted. I think she always put such a great spin on it. Like we chose you, we wanted you, she did everything to make it like how blessed they were because they just wanted me so bad.
Well, and your being knows that you're adopted, right? Like,
Yes.
So when that's denied to a child, there still
Yes.
is an origin fracture of an attachment to their mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially mother, but not just mother, father, but especially mother.
Totally.
So it's like innately, if your experience is really secure with your adoptive parents, still programmed in your nervous system is, I wasn't enough.
Yes, I want to be so good so
you might
don't
leave me. Exactly.
And I'm just learning that. And I just did that. I've done that constantly my whole life, like trying to just fix people or, like you said, help them or do everything. Do anything so you don't leave.
So that's what I mean. It's like you're trying to create safety, but the safety is created in a way of you being a chameleon. So not being able to be in a exhale and just be yourself, which it sounds like in your marriage now. That's
so
the experience. What's his name?
Dominic.
Shout out to Dominic.
And honestly, like some people are like, oh my God, when you talk about him, it sounds fake. Like it's like too much. But I think it's just, I've never had someone, I've just learned to communicate. He like teaches me to set boundaries. Like I would be afraid.
Well, boundaries are hot.
I saw your Instagram when you said boundaries are hot. But like I have just learned so much through my relationship with him. Here comes Brandy. Girl, your job is over. I'm a professional.
She's got the cards. She's dominating. Hi.
So obsessed.
Great. Nice to meet you.
So, even though I went straight into a new relationship, that could have maybe gone the wrong way. And again, I was saying I had such a fear of being alone. But when I met Dom, he was just so different in every aspect of the relationship that I had been in. As a matter of fact, in the first week that we met, he had told me that he does therapy once a month and he has for like 20 years. And I went to therapy with him. And
that's great.
It was so cool.
Early in the relationship?
Oh, like 2 weeks in.
That's awesome.
And so
most people would be like,
I was like, what? Like, yes, yes, yes. And it was really good. And one of the first things he said in therapy was, I just want to make sure that I'm not pushing Tish too fast into a new relationship. And like, she's just gone through divorce and I want to really learn how to walk her through that in the best way possible. And I was just like, whoa.
Like, who is this guy?
Exactly. And my therapist, Dr. Daniel Amen, who I talk about every
Wait, I
episode.
know who that is.
I love him. He kept saying, keep your ears open, really listen in these conversations. Like the first 4 months, you're like, it's on, like you're on cocaine when you're in love, like really learn who this person is. And every step of the way, it was just like so crazy how much I was learning in the beginning of that relationship. So anyway, Dom's awesome.
That's a good testimonial for Dom.
Yeah, he's
And
great.
I hear it every week.
Yeah. But Brandy loves him.
I do love him, yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, he is.
He's just really stepped up and shown up and done it all right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it shows you that if you have two people who are willing to have a commitment to growth, humility, curiosity, I think any two people who have those qualities can make anything work. It's just that when there's a lot of built up pain, you hear a lot how do I get my partner to go to therapy? How do I get my partner? And it's like, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. Actually, stop trying to get them to, because that's you stepping out of your role. Like, invite them to show up if they don't want to show up. Like, to me, I always think, how great of an invitation is it to say to somebody, listen, I love you. I'm so excited to create something with you. Why don't we use our relationship to become the best versions of ourselves first? Are you in? If someone says no to that, I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to. Obviously, everyone has a choice. But like, that's kind of a dream for everybody looking for a relationship, to have that kind of
That is
agreement.
Literally what Dom said to me. Like, after a month when we really knew like it was something good, great, he was like, the only thing I want to do is now, said, I feel like this is my chance to be the best version of myself. Not only for you, for my children, for everyone. And for him, he literally, I've never seen anybody work on themselves so much.
That's awesome.
This episode of Sorry We're Stoned is brought to you by Schedule 35. We are partnering with them to get things done. It is all about microdosing psilocybin products. I know for me, I have a lot of mental fog, especially by the end of the day, and I struggle to stay motivated and productive. And I can say anytime that I have microdosed, it has really helped with that in such a big way. So imagine a tool that gives you better focus, clears your mind, sparks creativity. There's nothing like it. And they say it's like magic, and that's the magic of microdosing. Their vegan capsules are accurately dosed and designed to give you an edge, just an edge to tackle your toughest days. And it really does do that. The benefits of microdosing are anecdotally celebrated and backed by so many universities. So if you're ready to have your best day ever, head over to schedule35.co and use the code STONE for 15% off. That is schedule35.co and using the code STONED for 15% off.
So anyway, I'm going to get to the stoners, because the stoners,
So many questions.
they have sent us so many questions for you.
All right, I'm excited.
So this one is, hey, I recently started dating my ex-husband's friend, who also happens to be my best friend from high school's ex-boyfriend. Okay, wait a minute. I recently started dating my
Ex-husband's friend,
who
best
also
friend
happens
from
to be
high
my-
school's ex.
Okay.
Wait, what was the second part?
Best friend from high school's
My
ex.
best
Ex-boyfriend.
friend from high school,
So
like
like if it
Missy's
were
ex.
Missy's ex.
Wow.
My ex has approved, but I've lost touch with this high school friend of mine, and I'm scared to tell her about me and her ex that are now together.
Well, if you've lost touch, why you gotta
Yeah,
tell?
I haven't talked to her in over 5 years. Would it be weird to hit her up for approval? I'm also scared of what our mutual friends are going to think when they recognize who I'm dating, but I really love him, and we've been avoiding making it official for years now out of respect for others. Realize it's time we do what we want. Can't wait to tune into the next app. So I think she does not need any approval.
No. And I think there's the part where you want to be mindful of other people's experiences, like asking your ex how they
Yes.
feel about it. Your friend that you don't talk to anymore, that may be
5
not
years?
even a friend.
Yeah.
But you could fire a message. Hey,
Yeah.
just to let you know, da-da-da and I are dating. Just wanted to give you a heads up. but you're not saying, are you okay with it? You're already
Yeah.
in the relationship. So obviously the approval isn't important. But if you hide truth from people around you, you reinforce that their opinion matters.
True.
So
Absolutely.
you're going to experience anxiety because you're suppressing who you are and you're suppressing the experience of your relationship so that people don't judge you. Let people fucking judge. Who gives a shit? You know, that's life. That's life. There's so many Reddit accounts created to judge people. There's troll accounts created to judge people. No matter what your shit is, there's an internet bot farm designed to criticize you.
This is exactly
So
what
just move
Dr.
on.
Amon says. Exactly.
Live your life.
Live your
There are so many people not living their life because they're afraid that if they live their life, their mom won't approve. So what ends up being perpetuated is that other people's opinions of you matter more than your own. Again, why are you anxious? Why are you depressed? Because you're suppressing yourself and you're not living your life. Let the relationships fall away. And then you stop resenting the people around you for all the secret contracts you're creating with them that give you permission to stay small. Stop staying small, grow, change. Text your friend
Or don't.
or don't, right?
I
I don't
love
know.
this.
If I got a text from 5 years ago, like, hey, I'm dating
Right?
your ex, enjoy.
Exactly.
I know. I'd be like, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You have fun with that.
Yeah.
Would
I
you
hope
like?
they read some books.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so crazy.
You want to ask some questions?
Love to. Hey guys, love the podcast. My question is, what is your opinion on having a friends with benefits? I love it. I'm 31 and my friends with benefits is 25 and the best I have ever had. I have
Heyo.
given up on dating and I am no longer bothered if I never get married and I do not mind being single forever. However, I think it's nice to have someone there to have your needs met. What do you think? Do you think as women we can get attached and it can lead to heartbreak, or is it something we can detach from and enjoy?
Ugh.
Big love from Amira in the UK.
What's up, Amira? Okay, well, there's a lot of layers to this.
I think Amira's got it right.
I knew
think
you were saying
Amira
that.
I'm
has
loving
it
what Amira's
somewhat,
putting out.
but I think there's layers to what she's saying. Language matters. The first thing I'll say is that she's clearly avoiding relationships because she's afraid of being hurt again. So she said, I don't care if I get into a relationship again.
Or
I
do you
don't.
just have a really healthy idea of like,
I say no.
because I don't know, because like, I just feel like we're so brainwashed to think like, you have to get into the relationship and then you get married and then you have kids and that's what life is. Like, why does it have to be that way?
I totally agree that there's the story of the life you're taught to live. And when you start to deviate from that, you realize you've been living a life you've been taught to live. So an authentic life is being asked to be born from you.
Mhm.
But whenever anyone says something like, I'm afraid of commitment, or the language in her question is very telling. The language about this relationship, I don't care if I'm single for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
She's how old? 31?
31.
That's a lie. She does care if she's single for the rest of her life. And I would argue that she is appealing to her pain with arousal. So she's using sex and connection as a way to treat the things that have not been explored yet. I don't care if someone chooses friends with benefits, bang away all you
Mhm.
want. It's just that usually one person is compromising what they truly want and actually avoiding deeper connection because they're afraid that connection leads to pain. So when someone says, I'm afraid of commitment, they're not afraid of commitment.
Or is this a person you just have fun with, but not somebody you would really want a relationship
Sure,
with?
you can bang your way to the next relationship. But again, it has to be born from honest intent. If you're actually using the friends with benefits as a way to avoid exploring your stuff,
Mhm.
again, you can do it. None of this is hierarchical or judgmental.
Mhm.
I just know that below that is
Mhm.
avoidance. And friends with
Possibly.
benefits,
Yeah.
Here's
not
what I like-
possibly.
here's what I
There's
like about it,
definitely-
though.
It definitely is.
I think there's a difference in saying, I don't care to get married. I don't mind being single forever. And I'm just good being alone. I think it's really cool that she's like, you know what? I just want to have fun.
I
and like, if I
agree.
meet somebody that we have great sex and I just want to have fun, I think that's
I think
great.
that's fine too, but I think absolutely 100% the undertone is she's been hurt and she's scared of being hurt again.
Read that last line
But
that you
why is
just
that
read.
bad?
But hold
It's
on.
not.
It's not. But read the last line again.
The last line, do you think as
Do-
women we can get attached and it can lead to heartbreak,
Yep.
or is it something we can detach from and enjoy?
So, sorry, I did mean the other one, which
Oh,
is
sorry.
the energetic of what she said is there is pain there.
Sure, of course.
Right. So-
Everybody has it though.
No, because people resolve it, right?
Yeah,
they
but
resolve
you
it.
you had it at some point, whatever.
Of course, I've
I feel
had
like-
it, but I'm
yeah.
saying you resolve it.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's
I think
because
some of it
Brandy
you
was
can-
in a very hurtful relationship.
But I think that about like, we talk about all this family trauma of my sibling did this to me and I'm scarred for life. I think like you can come to terms with it and you can forgive them and get over it, but it's something you might always carry with you. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you let the pain of something like, just because you have grief about something doesn't mean you haven't processed it, right? Like,
Mhm.
I can think of memories and experiences that can make me emotional, of
Yeah.
course. But just this situation, we're not talking about all friends with benefits.
Yeah.
We're not talking,
Yeah.
but in this specific case,
Mm.
the language is pretty clear.
Yeah.
And can women or men get attached through sex? Of course, you're actually designed to. Oxytocin is released in both, but especially women during orgasm. It lasts longer in women. And that makes sense. You're supposed to be bonded to people you have sex with because you might get pregnant. So you're actually designed
Right.
to have a long-term connection. So when you try to not catch feelings, you're actually minimizing and suppressing, and I would even use the word disassociating, from what is natural and biological. It's like when you grow up in a religion and they say, if you get aroused, you're going to hell. Well, you're a human, so you're going to get aroused.
Mhm.
So you either have to suppress arousal, which is what most people do, and then they end up with things like porn addictions,
Right.
or you actually acknowledge that the belief is not accurate. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to live in a world where you've been taught about this religion and it's not actually accurate to the human experience. You see this all the time. But getting back to this, is it possible? The friends with benefits almost always does end, right?
For sure.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And one
Usually
person
because
moves
one
on.
person wants more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When that person, if the friends with benefits can hold the conversations to the change of intentions, I would say most people don't create the safe space for that. Like when one person's like, I actually like you and I want something more, the other person ghosts them, or
Mhm.
there's not
Or says,
actually
"I don't feel
two
the
adults.
same."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is healthy to
Yeah.
say if that's true.
Yeah.
But I think also a lot of people dance in language. They say that they want a friends with benefits, but deeper down they actually want a relationship. And so we just have
Maybe
to
not
be
with
honest.
that person though.
Exactly.
Maybe not with that person.
Yeah. And I think the person who's like, I'm not looking for anything. All I want is a friends with benefits. They're being honest and they're being clear. And the other person's like, well, I'll take what I can get from them.
That's true.
But I hope they change.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I bang them enough or blow them enough,
Right.
they'll change. That doesn't actually work.
Yeah. Did we help her?
I think so.
Okay.
Did we help her?
And I ask this all the time. Like, did we actually
I
help
don't
this
know if
person?
we did.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
The next question is, how do we love ourselves and ignore others' opinions?
Well, that comes back to the first question.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to do. I mean, when we talked about other people's opinions ahead of our opinion of ourselves, we will not love ourselves. So if I really want to love who I am, I have to make choices that align with my values. Like full stop, how you feel about you is based on what you choose.
This is why I did not love myself for a very long time.
It can be hard, when you're a kid and you're wanting to be safe and fit in your family, that becomes an adult who wants to be safe and fit in their systems, their relationships, their friends. And, the moment you start feeling a tension of your value being violated, you either have the choice to stand in it or not. And that's when we start to get a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So how do you start to value yourself over the opinions of others? You start to make choices that are at the cost of the opinions of others. And then you really do start to see that you're a separate human that has the right to be happy. I mean, gosh, if that was something we were taught as kids,
I
that you have
mean,
the right to be happy.
I did not believe that. That Dr. Amen says I've put everybody's happiness before my own for like long time. Long time. And I'm just now at this age starting to understand it and like put those things in place. And it is like wonderful.
Well, that's especially a cultural message that women have been sent about relationships,
Yeah.
about life, about family. And I think there's a big difference between compromise and self-abandonment because, of course, I have a 14-month-old now. So, people will say, well, I don't want to change a kid's diaper, but I have to change a kid's diaper. I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. And I'm like, of course, I get that. But to me, compromise in relationship is expansive to the relationship. But self-abandonment, you can feel it. You can feel it in your gut that it doesn't feel aligned.
Yep.
To finally put yourself first is not a story that's celebrated.
At all.
No, not at all. And especially if you speaking up, like for a lot of relationship dynamics where, let's just talk about like if a woman's in a relationship with a man who makes the money, and obviously this dynamic will be switched around for every gender combination, but it's like, if that happens, then speaking up and saying something that can cause friction in the relationship is connected to your safety
Absolutely.
and your security. So then what happens is they'll quiet themselves so that they don't rock the boat and lose their relationship.
I just saw Goldie Hawn talking about this. She was like, the second that you give, like, that you do not have financial freedom of your own, creates all kinds of problems
Yeah,
in your
100%.
relationship. Because just like you said, like, you probably, there's a chance that you're going to be like, I cannot leave. Like, I cannot
Right.
support myself and like, she was like, when you give up that that you can financially support yourself, you
Mhm.
give up a lot.
Yeah.
I do think it's important, like, it sounds to me, like the stoners as a community,
Yeah.
you need other people who remind you that it's okay.
Yep.
Like you need, when it's like that question, how do I put myself ahead of other people's opinions? You need other people who are like, yeah, you need to do that. We've got you.
Right.
Exactly.
Because you're stronger when you know that there's other relationships you're not going to lose.
Mhm.
1,000,000%.
Because that's the hardest work, is like breaking generational patterns of silence.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, because you're not just going up your family tree. You're like, if you're a woman, you're going up your maternal line. And you
Yeah.
might be like, okay, well, when was the last time a woman in my family had an opinion? What was the cost? And it could have been death. It could have been rape. It could have been abuse. It could
Yep.
have been so many things.
I love this. Okay. How do you know if you are truly ready for love if you always push good people away?
Well, we will often sabotage good relationships because we don't trust ourselves with them.
Yeah.
Remember, I said that like the fear of commitment is really not the fear of commitment. It's the fear of where commitment goes. So I don't trust myself when I commit to something. I don't trust when people commit to me. That push. I heard this quote the other day I really loved. It's, we burn bridges we don't know yet how to cross.
We remember exactly.
And I was like, that's so true, that we either burn bridges from the past that we don't trust ourselves to not go back to.
yes.
But we burn ones in our future because we don't know how to walk across that bridge. So instead of walking into availability, we actually just burn the bridge of
Is it
availability.
like fear of the unknown almost? Like,
Yeah, because you got to enter the space of uncertainty, but you also have to become the kind of person who can walk towards it, which means you're going to have to learn boundaries. You're going to have to be able to advocate for yourself. Like when you really think about being able to choose someone who's available, you have to be able to say no to someone who's not.
right.
So if you don't know how to say no to something that's not aligned, then when a yes comes along, you won't trust your yes because you don't have access to a no.
Totally.
So really your yes comes with small print. It comes with people pleasing. It comes with, well, this is a yes because I feel like I have to, or this is what I'm supposed to do. So the yes isn't genuine. And that's something you can learn through relationship, like you're talking about with Dominic, where he's like, I want you to have a boundary.
Yeah.
Like in people I work with, I'll say like, your no is honored. Like I need your no. Your no actually makes this relationship work. My wife, no problem having access to boundaries, right? Like it's, in our book, we talk about one of the principles of liberated love. One is a fierce dedication to just telling the truth above everything, above the relationship, above everything, the truth first. The second one, though, is honoring each other's path as your own, not this is us and we have one path. We have two humans who have dreams and desires and goals. How do we actually work together and communicate to walk alongside each other? So I think for that person who's asking about how you move towards availability, you know, for me, it just always comes back to like, get really clear on what you want, get really clear on what matters to you, design your life around that, and get access to your voice. Because
Yeah.
if you can get access to know, then when a good guy or a good woman shows up, you'll actually be able to choose them authentically.
I'm working with Dr. Amon when did I lose my voice? Like, when did I really lose my voice? Because I feel like I did that for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just like was too afraid to have a voice before you got here, we talked about like, even with mom, like I was always such a pleaser because
Mhm.
I was like, oh, like, because I'm adopted. It's like, oh, well, my birth parents, they didn't want me. They like, I want to be really, really good and really perfect and just please so you don't leave.
Right.
Which is what I also did in my marriage. And so I just pleased and never really had a voice at all
Mm-hmm.
until now.
Yeah.
Definitely, like I said, like I made sure everybody was happy.
Mhm.
Everyone was together. The family was amazing.
Yeah. She's like queen of sweep it under the rug.
Just sweep everything under the rug, just keep it all together, and then sacrifice what I needed.
Isn't that, it's like we're trying to hold it all up.
Yep.
And then eventually, of course, you can't hold it all up because behind all the plates we're carrying and all the stuff,
Exactly.
you end up getting exhausted. Like your
Ugh.
nervous system gets depleted. You end up crashing. And, I think like, although we might not be able to see it, as you're saying, explicitly in what's going on, like what I see a lot, and this was true, I think in my childhood too, is that you see your parents maybe have some conflict, but you don't see the repair.
Mm.
So they save the repair, if there is a repair.
Yeah.
But you also often, there'll be families where you never see any conflict. So then you never learn how to navigate conflict. And
I
so,
think that was
yeah,
us in a lot of ways
Mhm.
because I just made sure there was no conflict.
Yeah.
to protect
As much as possible,
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? And then the energetic the kid gets is like, oh, it's not safe to have conflict.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
For sure.
Love this podcast. It's like a vulnerable circle.
Was it my turn?
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, this kind of goes actually into this question in a really cool way. How do you work on yourself personally when you're in a committed relationship?
Well, sometimes working on ourselves creates fear in the other person that we're going to grow
Mhm.
away from them.
Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think with that, we can sometimes take that as rejection. But I think, when two people in a relationship, let's say you get married when you're like 22 and you're 35, you are a completely different person.
Completely different
Yeah.
person.
So you like made these, often we don't even
Yep.
make clear agreements when we're 22 getting married. We're just doing it.
Yep.
And there's a psychologist named Stan Tech, and he talks about how the number one reason relationships end is because they fail to make clear agreements at the beginning. So like, why are we together? What are we creating with this relationship? How do we navigate conflict? All these things we're going to end up having to talk about. But like what I see a lot is one person starts being like, oh, I forgot about me, especially after kids and all that.
Yep.
I'm going to start growing. I'm going to start doing what I'm passionate about. And the other person's like, wait. Like, we don't do what we're passionate about here. We forgot all that. We gave all that up. I think it's wild that people break up and then become everything they desire, which I think is an important thing. But like, why not become everything that's possible for you in a relationship?
Mhm.
Right?
Because I think, like you said, I think specifically for me, when I, met my husband at 24, I guess,
Yeah.
23, 24, and we got married, like I I always said I was like barefoot and pregnant for a long time.
Mhm.
And that's all I was at home being a mom. Like
Yeah.
literally that's it. And then when we moved to Los Angeles because Miley got Hannah Montana, I got thrown into being a manager for my
Wow.
daughter, and my ex-husband was very successful entertainer in country music. And I kind of like had all those years of, watching him, do what he did and really, I guess, soaking in a lot of like what managers do or agents do. And so I had a little bit of knowledge, going into it. But like I've been Miley's manager since we started this thing in 2004 until now. And I just think like I'm from Appalachia, Eastern Kentucky. And I just grew so much.
Yeah.
Like I really, and she was so young that I was just everything in that for a couple of years until I got someone to co-manage her with me. But I grew so much and really I did become a different person, from this girl from Eastern Kentucky that was really just at home being a mom to doing what I've now done for the last like almost 20 years. And I think I did grow and change a lot.
That's why starting to pursue your dreams, your passions, it lights a fire in you, and you realize when you've been giving away all your choices, you realize you have a choice, and then you start to see your life through the lens of choice. And then you realize, well, I've chosen all these things then, even though I didn't feel like I did. And so the process of stepping into your power, your sovereignty, your dreams, your passions, whatever it is, it actually has a grieving process too, because you're grieving all the moments you didn't. And I think for this,
Totally.
when we're in a relationship and we're growing, we can sometimes see our partner's resistance to our growth as a rejection of our growth. But I think it's hard because a lot of relationships don't have the environment where you can say, hey, like I really notice that you're a little frustrated or something's coming up for you for me being passionate about something. Can you tell me about that?
I would have never done that.
No,
I
never.
would have never done that younger.
No.
Yeah, like I just know now that I'm like, oh, I remember interviewing John and Julie Gottman. who are like the god parents of marriage and family therapy research. And they wrote this book called 8 Dates. And it's like the 8 essential conversations you need to have dating. It's a great book. And I remember saying to her, well, what happens if you buy the book and then you say to your partner, like, let's read this book together, and they say no? You break up with them? She was like, no, Mark, you don't break up with them. My gosh. She was like, you ask them why. You like get curious. It's not an automatic no.
Miley says that.
Dr. Amen says, get curious, not furious.
Get curious, not furious. That's true. That's true. And I think there's a line in relationships where you can only ask so many questions, and then your answers are in the lack of answers, you know? Because I think for people who are always trying to keep the relationship together, or the ones trying to repair, the ones reading the books, the ones listening to the podcast, the change of behavior is to stop trying to get people to do shit and put all your life force into yourself.
Yeah.
And then you realize that it's like dating an addict. You know, the addict, you say, hey, I can't support this anymore. Like, I'm not going to enable it. They get sober in a perfect world. And then the person is like, well, what do I do now with all my time and energy? It's an addiction to try to heal people from addictions.
Absolutely. And, like, because my relationship now, there's nothing to fix in my relationship right now. Like, it's weird. It's almost like, because honestly, like the last I've always had an anxiety disorder since I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm very open about taking Lexapro and it kind of being mellow for a very long time. And then over the last 3 weeks, I have just had like the worst anxiety and panic attacks, and for many reasons. But Molly's like, I also think, like, because we haven't been working as much and you don't have anyone to fix, like, you were constantly like putting out fires and fixing things, and like she was like, and now you just are at home and relaxed, and like there's no one to fix.
Yeah.
And I do think that also is like, oh, like it's just so different.
Well, the layer of the nervous system is like, if you're constantly normally vigilant and putting out fires or walking on eggshells, right? And this can happen from trauma, that you get stuck in that loop. And to finish that other thought too, is like, often couples don't know how to relate to each other from a healthy place. So either one person has something to change and they identify as being broken. The other person's like, I wish they'd get better. I wish they'd fix that thing. I wish they'd become a better communicator. Well, when this person becomes that, then they don't know how to relate to each other anymore, because there's a power dynamic. I get you to change, you have a problem. And so this person has to stop identifying as a problem, and this person has to stop sourcing power from being the one fixing it. So when you actually look on a nervous system level, if all of a sudden we're relating to each other from a healthy place, then I actually can start to go into a regulated state. I don't trust regulation. I've never lived here. I've never been here.
This is so mean.
I don't know what it's like to have people who show up, who are reliable. I don't trust reliability, because the people I was supposed to be able to rely on hurt me, didn't show up, weren't there, weren't consistent. That could be a big one, right? Well, now there's consistency. So then it's like, okay, well, there's a saying that the wrong question is why the addiction, the right question is why the pain. That's from Gabor Mate. And it's like, well, what's below? Because anything that changes your state means there's a state you want to change, right? So it's like, can we actually be in the state or not be in it? Because that can be too much. But can we be sort of exposed to it? That's why I think somatic therapy is so powerful, working with someone who's an expert on the nervous system. Because they like walk you to the edges of your nervous system response, because we don't have the capacity to go too far. We want to expose ourselves to it, but you'll get overwhelmed if you spend too much time there at first.
That's where me and Eamon are headed.
That's where you're going.
Yep, that's where we're
I
going.
wish we
Good.
had $1 for every time you drop Damon's name on this
I mean,
podcast.
the man
He
has-
does have $1 for
Oh,
every
yes.
time.
Literally.
Honest
I wish
to
we had the dollar.
Yeah. You should be an affiliate. I don't think you can do
literally-
affiliates with actors.
I'm obsessed with him. He has saved mine and Molly's life. Like not even exaggerating. Like without him over the last 3 weeks, I'd would be like cuckoo.
Doesn't he have, he's been doing a lot of talks, right? Recently, and like a lot of
Yeah.
touring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
he's-
feel like I've seen him in a lot of places. He
he's-
teaches at Harvard?
I don't
somewhere.
know if he's teaching, but I mean he does do a lot of talks, and but he is just, I don't know. He's literally guided me through so much
That's great.
for the last literally like 10 years.
That's great.
And I mean, just really changed Molly's life completely. So I've learned so much from him that I love sharing it,
That's great. Yeah.
But you say so many things that are just very similar to the way he thinks and the way we process things and all the kind of things that I've been going through over the last 3 weeks with him. It's been like and he kind of pushes me to go there now, to like the worst places that you feel like you need to go and kind of work through it.
Yeah, you need to be held there.
Yeah.
Like I think we can often fear that we're going to get swallowed by our grief
Yeah.
or pain. So we need someone to just hold our hand.
Yeah.
In the book, we talk about increasing your tolerance for good triggers, like vulnerability, like reliability, that it's not just about avoiding triggers that are painful, but actually exposing yourself to triggers that are associated with pain, but they're actually good. And that, man, I think relating and doing the humanness of it all is the hardest work.
Yeah.
Can you skip to number 8?
Oh, sure.
I'm so confused. I have so many questions about this.
I'm
Okay.
excited for number 8. I like how you're like, can we just pop over
Like,
here?
I need a number 8 to be addressed before this podcast
Okay.
is over. So
Number 8. What would you do if your partner refused to take their shirt off after 5 years?
I so badly want to know if the partner is a woman or a man.
Oh, like if there's a self-conscious gender.
Well, I'm just
Issue.
curious. Like, I
I think
makes
this
a big
is coming
difference.
from
Oh,
a
I see what you're
girl
saying.
about,
Sorry, I'm
like, is
thinking
it a girl
about-
or a guy
I
that doesn't
think
want
this
to take
is
their
a
I'm
shirt
girl
thinking
off?
about
about
the
a
man.
whole other.
You do,
avenue.
yeah.
Say who you think it's what? A
I
man?
think that,
She thinks
our
it's a-
stoners mostly are women.
That's
so I would
true.
think she's,
Talking about a guy
yeah.
not wanting to take his shirt off.
Well, I think regardless of the gender, it would be probably just relevant to some sort of perception of self,
Yeah.
right? Like,
1 million.
5 years?
which tells me that it hasn't been addressed, or if it has been addressed, maybe there's defensiveness that comes up for it.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, I'm going to guess they got made fun of for something when they were younger. They might be
I
self-conscious
do
about their
this.
body.
I never just walk around in booty shorts or undies ever.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have such insecurity with my legs and like I'm just really insecure about it. So I kind of get it.
5
Did you get made fun of
years?
for your legs?
Yeah. They called me chicken legs in school.
Because that's a terrible thing to be called.
Right.
Like,
It is when you're young.
It is when you're young.
no, I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. Like, love.
No, I have a thing about my legs.
I've been thinning
and
these
just
out.
like
Yeah.
not
like,
being super toned after having 5 kids. I literally
So you have a lot of self-consciousness about your legs.
she
so
does have a
bad.
lot, yeah.
Here's one thing that's really interesting is that our self-consciousness is never originated from ourselves, right?
I
So
believe
yeah.
that.
a belief you have about yourself is something someone said to you that you started to think, and a thought over and over again becomes a belief.
Mhm.
1,000,000%.
So the good thing is beliefs can change. They can change with, being held by other people in the pain of that, like if we've never processed it. But the more we hide something, the more we reinforce the belief. So the more you radically step into the celebration of your stems, the more the wounding from your childhood no longer perpetuates. But the longer you keep hiding them, the more
Oh.
the story lives.
Mm.
So if this person is, I would want to hold a compassionate space for, how do I help you heal that? How do I
Yeah.
be a space? What are you worried about in terms of my judgments? Now, also, have you ever said anything to them? That could be.
That's what I was going to say. Is like, if I were her after 5 years, I would just be like, okay, what's the tea with the shirt? Like, do you think I'm going to leave you? Do you think I won't love you anymore? Like, what is it? Let's address it so we can move on and you can take your shirt off because this is silly.
Yeah,
And
start to
I'm
turn
not-
it into a fetish, maybe.
I think
Yeah.
We get
also
some nipple clamps.
Yeah.
Check this out.
Literally. It's kind of like with you where it's like, all right, what's your worry? Like, let's address what the worry is so that we can move past it.
Do you think you can start to expose the legs?
No.
Okay, but
So
to
it's
Dom,
that
like when you guys have
deep-seated?
sex, you don't keep pants on. Like that would.
No.
They're crotchless pants.
No, I don't.
So like you're
So
clearly
it's not
like
Dom.
it's fine.
You have trust there?
I just don't want anybody to see them.
I think you need to start exposing them.
I don't think I can.
She has great legs. It's so ridiculous. But
That's-
this
yeah.
isn't about her. This is about the stoner.
I know, but
so let's
I-
help her.
Okay, so the stoner,
It's
I
about
think she needs
everybody.
to give him
Address.
a safe. I think she needs to give him
Yeah.
or her a safe place.
Yeah.
And it's because I think fear again is abandonment. Ooh, they're gonna see that and think gross, and then never look at me the same ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the story starts to change when the other person knows your wound.
Yes.
And then what you might ask them is, what's the best thing you could hear from me?
Yeah.
And then you actually just keep perpetuating that. So if
And I
it's
feel like just talking about it
Yeah.
just makes it better, right? It's
well,
like,
shame only, what amplifies shame is secrecy.
right. So like the more you talk about it, the less of a bit of a deal it becomes, I feel, with anything.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
what I mean?
absolutely. And through these last 3 weeks where I've just been in complete, absolute anxiety hell,
Mhm.
like, I'm going back to Dom. Like, my word, like, what I felt like is like Tish at her lowest, darkest, like, it is all on the table self. I just cannot believe, like, there was not one when I was just like, I don't want to be a burden. He was like, I love you more than anything. How could you ever be a burden? Like, let's breathe through this. Let's walk through this together. My stomach hurts. I'm terrified to like. It was all out there because I was just in that place. And at every step of the way, the only thing he did was say, I love you so much. You are not a burden. You think because you have an anxiety disorder and you're going through a little minute that I'm going to leave? That's
Right.
never happening. Every single thing. And now I think I think part of me going through what I just went through these last few weeks, like, healed so much of me being able to tell him, like, anything and everything and not be afraid he will leave.
It built more trust.
So much more.
Yeah.
And that's available to everybody if we start to hold that kind of space. I think when we're not used to having the space held, we don't know how to hold it. And then a lot of us are like, well, I'm not going first.
Totally,
you
for
go
sure.
first. But then no one ever goes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we see that the going first and the other person not reciprocating is a failure of the experience. But you actually, there's that saying that it's about progress, not perfection. So you don't use your voice so someone affirms your voice. You use your voice so you can hear your voice. That's actually the healing. If someone doesn't like what I
Totally.
say, it doesn't mean what I said isn't accurate or correct. You can obviously go to trusted places of feedback to get that. But if I'm laying a boundary for the first time in my relationship and my partner doesn't like my boundary, it doesn't make the boundary not necessary or accurate. It just makes the relationship is now having to reorganize a version of me that has boundaries, which is very different.
I just can't imagine being in a relationship for 5 years and like you go to the pool and they have a shirt on. You never shower together after 5 years? Like, how is this possible? It's so nuts to me.
You would have to be going through a lot of strategy.
A lot of strategy.
Right. So imagine how much
sounds
time that
exhausting.
takes. Exactly. And the other person's like, if you just got vulnerable about it.
Yeah, like
So it's
no
like, how do
biggie.
we create the space to do that?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think talking, like just initiating the conversation.
Shows you how
is
much
key.
childhood, like bullying and shit, just
Yeah.
stays in people's psyches.
No,
Yeah.
it is
Well,
horrible.
it's a hot
topic.
Like,
Really?
that's
Yeah.
a hot topic, even just with like me and social media and the whole thing. Like, personally, like, I don't think I would have survived growing up with social media and
That's
the.
brutal.
I
Bull-
totally agree. I'm
Oh.
leaving social media.
Really been thinking about it too. I personally think it is not good for me.
I think it models an abusive relationship
Yep.
in the way Meta relates to the people. I'm sure that's true of like TikTok. I don't really deal with it, but YouTube at least pays you for content, so there's a relational aspect to
Mhm.
it. But the reason I think platforms like Instagram, especially and Facebook, the reason they are is like, one, you're always being evaluated by your followers and people who are not your followers. So your
Yep.
content 24 hours a day, your nervous system is going, how's that doing?
Mhm.
Am I okay? Does someone hate me? Am I being called
Yes.
fat? Am I being called stupid?
Yep.
And then what happens though, and this is, I think, the bigger part of it, is that not just our people and bots, but an algorithm, which is a non-human entity, is constantly assessing you. But if I say to a relationship, hey, I'm experiencing anxiety. I feel like you never tell me how I can win. No, nothing is ever enough. If I say the wrong thing, I feel like you're going to take it all away.
Yep.
That in a relationship is relational. So the relationship will accommodate how you're being impacted. Social media doesn't have a feedback loop. So you're in a one-way relationship with a platform that extracts everything it can from you, because the more it gets from you, the more content it delivers and the more money it makes.
Mhm.
And to me, that is like, we're all like conduits of extraction and we don't even know it. And it's
Yeah.
causing immense anxiety,
I know.
especially in young people. I couldn't
Oh.
imagine being 20
Oh.
and having Instagram.
No, it's
Or 14?
I
It's
know.
15?
horrible.
I think it's the smoking of our generation.
Mm.
Million Jonathan Haidt just wrote a book
1,000,000%.
called The Anxious Generation. And it's been like
Yeah.
number one on New York Times for, I want to say, since it came out.
Uh-huh.
Because he's saying like, this isn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for women, for girls, the way that girls deal with social friction
Yes.
is through weaponizing belonging and community. And it's not to say that guys don't do that, but it's just that's how women navigate that. And so it's like handing a gun to girls. And I think we're seeing the cost of that.
Mhm.
I think that
So many
I
layers.
forget the actual percentage that Eamon and I were talking about. It's like 44% of young girls have thought about suicide because of their perception of themselves from social media.
That's so crazy.
43% have thought about it, and a certain percentage, it was a pretty big percentage, have actually tried.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I just know what I see what it just does to these young girls, and it is so sad.
It really is.
It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And it's like, where are the adults?
I
Yeah.
know.
But adults
the
are
ones making
addicted
money
too.
on the platform.
Right, exactly.
Okay, we just have time for a couple more. So I want to make sure
Okay.
we hit the ones I really wanted to
Okay.
hit. What advice would you give about going back to a first love? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
A first love.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how
is it
many
a
loves they've
or is it a
had.
first love or just somebody you've broken up
It
with?
says, what about going back to a first
Okay.
love?
Well, I think getting back together with anyone, I'm a stickler of language, as you probably figured out. But for me, I think the idea of going back should never equate going backwards. So like if you're in your zone and you're growing and changing, you should meet the person you're in relationship with on that path. If you have to deviate from that path or go back in behaviors and ways of being to be with them, then it's not in service of your growth. Now, one thing I know to be true, just having worked with, hundreds and hundreds of people, it's like what I notice is that if you are in the zone of your own life, you stop worrying about it.
Mm.
And when you stop worrying about it and you don't need it to be Tom, you just need it to be someone who aligns, you won't even care anymore. Now, that's not to say that someone can't desire it. And let's say this person is like an attractive choice again. Then if things are not cleared and healed from the past relationship, that needs to be done first.
Mm.
A lot of people just never talk about the things that happen.
Totally.
And it's like, if there were breaches of trust, like when my wife and I got back together, when we were just dating, I remember at the beginning, I was like, well, I don't trust you. Like, you told me in the first relationship that you chose it,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't.
Right.
So now you're telling me you choose it?
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't trust you. And she was like, I get it. She's like, you're right. I'm not going anywhere. And I was like, ooh. That was like everything I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But she wasn't trying to rush me. She didn't get defensive.
Mm-hmm.
She just acknowledged it. And that was incredibly healing for me. Our book does talk about, like, if you are going to get back together, it does talk about, like, what are the steps that you take if you want to create a relationship, if you're with someone and you want to reinvent it, if you're single, or if you're getting back together. It really walks through the path of how to do that.
Interesting. Yeah, because I feel like that's hard to navigate.
Yeah.
Especially because of the old stuff.
That's
You got to
exactly.
excavate the
that's-
old
It's
stuff.
all about that. I
Yeah,
feel.
absolutely.
That
I
would be the
actually
hard
think we
part for
should
me.
do that with exes in general, if it's
Sure.
available.
Mm-hmm.
Like through our work and through, we did a closing ceremony of our first relationship right after we broke up, where we actually honored the relationship. We had
That's
it.
crazy.
We lit a fire. We answered. Oh my God, it was hard. I remember sitting in my car outside, waiting to go in, and I was thinking, I don't want to do this.
Right.
And then I asked myself, do I not want to do this because I genuinely don't want to do this? Or do I not want to do this because the version of me who can do it doesn't exist yet?
Mm.
And I was like,
Dang.
shit, the answer is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and we lit a fire and we answered 3 questions. What were we most grateful for about the other person and why? And we're talking like we had music on that was important to us. We had
Yes.
chose the playlist. I was like crying from a deep.
Yeah, this sounds very hard.
It was hard. And the second one was, what was your
Hard,
favorite
yeah.
memory and why? And the third one was,
Ugh.
what did we hope for the other
Oh
person?
my God, I could not have done this.
The hope for the other person, we were honest. I was like, I can't access that right now for
Yeah.
you. Like, I genuinely do want good things for you, but
Sure.
like, I can't authentically be like, I can't wait
Yeah.
for you to find your person.
Yeah.
But the other 2, My wife and I have talked about this a lot, that it completely changed. And I was saying this to her before you got here, that it completely changed how I saw what was possible for a relationship when the status of it changed. That like there was actually more love experienced through the ending. And so like all the thoughts and rules you're given about breakups had to go out the window. And so it caused a lot of people who were exposed to that to do it.
Yeah.
And
That's
I have a
interesting.
breakup course where I added that to it after our breakup.
I think that's amazing.
Well, like when I broke up with,
Mhm.
he was nicer to me the day we broke up than he was ever to me in our entire 2.5-year relationship. Like said like more like nice things, like you're just the best person I've ever met. And I love you so much. Like, and like, I'm like, where was all that in the 2.5
You're like,
years?
that would have been helpful
Yeah.
yesterday.
And like the day we broke up, like
Yeah.
you're like spilling it all. It was nuts.
yeah.
Did you break up with him?
I did because I caught him cheating.
Oh yeah.
Like he would have just like,
Was he a serial cheater?
yeah.
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 Really?
Oh yeah.
Serial cheaters, I would say, are operating from a really high level of avoidance. And so I would say there's definitely like narcissistic, sociopathic tendencies.
Oh, yes.
And so they're not capable of change. You know,
They're
till
not capable of
I
change.
know, I know.
And it is the idea that we're going to get them to, or like this time is different. I think when people become really connected to choice and their values, what ends up happening is they end up reconnecting to deeper parts of their intuition. And I think this is especially true for women. Like guys, we're great, but there's like a deeper sense of like the power of what a womb has, of its ability to know.
Mm.
I mean, my wife sleeps beside our son, and it is shown in the research that when the baby starts to come out of deep sleep, the mother does too.
Crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
The attunement, the crazy things that are
Yeah.
happening
Mm.
outside of the literal world,
Absolutely.
right? So I think about that of like, if you are drawn to and dating people who are toxic, who are whatever, and it's like your Tinder somehow brings you to shitty people, but the same Tinder in the same city in the same zip code brings other people to healthy people, then you know that the way you're classifying red flags and green flags is just in your own, you're doing it in a way that's not helpful to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being brought back into recurring circumstances so you can figure out how to navigate them and say no to them. Because without access to the skill, you keep finding yourself there. But like, I remember working with this person who was talking about how like, there's a familiarity of the nervous system where someone will say, I don't know why, but I always end up dating married people.
Oh, gosh.
And it's like, well, how come you always end up with married people? Because there's an energetic recognition that's going on that this person is not actually available, but willing to step out.
Yeah.
Right. So when we are drawn to these types of people, we're really, and we get connected back. Like, that's why when you stop dating and all of a sudden you go, you know what, I'm not going to interact with any, like, let's say if you date men, right? I'm not going to interact with any men for 3 months. I'm not going to sext. I'm not going to text. I'm not going to try to get their glare. I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm just going to be in my own energetic, and I'm going to notice my draw to these things. I'm going to notice my pull to wanting to be noticed by that guy at the bar. I'm going to notice that the perfect guy who's almost available, who's a photographer with a man bun, is like covered in coconut oil.
Dead.
It's like, I'm going to say no to him. The perfect friends with benefits, the most conscious, aware, vulnerable, uses all the right fucking words. It's like all that shit is a test. Because if you can say no to all that, now you know that when it comes to your relationship with something that is not aligned, you now have choice. Now you're in your body. Now you're in your nervous system. Now you know you got your own fucking back. So when someone like that comes into your life, you're like, no. This is sacred now. I don't let anything into my life that is not. And that's why I think when I see people who are recurring cheaters, they have to find some sort of come to Jesus rock bottom, but they have to confront so much shame that it consumes them. It will have
But
to
if
consume
they're a
them.
malignant narcissist, do they ever really recognize that?
No.
I don't think so either.
We're talking 0.001% maybe. I don't want to say never, but like the whole malignant narcissism in and of itself, they don't even believe they have a flaw.
Right. That's the problem.
You know, and vulnerable narcissism is a whole other can. But either way, it's like you can't relate to anybody who doesn't believe that they are contributing to any outcomes. All relationships are relational.
Right.
You are a system that is generating something. And both of you are 100% responsible for your 50%. And so it's like, if you can't say, I did that, I'm sorry. If behavior and words don't match, red flag.
True.
Not,
Very
oh,
true.
believe what they do, not what they say. No, if they don't match, don't believe any.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want a relationship, but they treat you like they want a relationship. They don't want a relationship.
Yeah,
Like, that's where people fall prey to the
Mhm.
bullshit.
Yeah.
for sure.
Dr. Amen says when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
That's a famous saying before Dr. Amen, I
Oh.
think, but I like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, last question.
We should put his
because
name
we
on it on the
really-
quote.
I know
Exactly.
we're going crazy on time,
Oh.
but I love this one. How do you know it's time to end a relationship? And she also said she's been dating for 6 years, this person.
Oh, man, should I stay or go? I think one of the most powerful.
I feel like the fact that she's asking means it's probably time to end it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think to be able to even, I agree with you. And I think to be able to even enter the question is a powerful place to be at, because what I notice a lot is that people are looking for the answer to be anything but what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And
For sure.
I will often ask
Yeah.
people who are not sure, is abandoning yourself staying or going?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the times people leave too early from people who can choose them. So abandoning themselves is actually leaving. I always asked myself, do I have more to learn here? And just like genuinely, do I? And there was a moment when Kylie and I were together the first time where the answer was no. And as soon as it was no, it was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, either way, no matter what you choose, there's no wrong choice. So if
Right.
you leave a relationship and then you recognize the value of it, you only recognize the value through leaving. But I often think that it is through leaving things that you also recognize their weight,
For sure.
right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that was a
Yes.
lot. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like I've been dead for the last 5 years. So I think you're right. If you're asking the question, great, and be willing to hear the answer that
Yeah.
you don't want to hear.
Mhm.
Yep.
In our book, we do talk about getting very clear on how do you know?
Mhm.
And it truly comes back to what we said before. Just get so deeply in touch with your own self
Mhm.
that, it's like, if I left, what would people think? That's what's keeping me here?
Yeah.
So now Betty down the road doesn't think I'm a failure because I didn't get divorced. Who gives a shit about Betty?
Seriously.
You know?
I think the reason, I mean, maybe that's just because that's why I did. There was just so much fear in
Yeah.
leaving,
For you,
Society
mostly
does
fear
not
of being
celebrate.
alone.
fear of being alone.
Well,
yeah.
society does not celebrate leaving.
No.
No.
And, there is love in leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I had a friend who was dating someone and he put it all out there. He showed up and he said to me, here I go again, I failed. And I was like, don't for once make this mean you failed. Like, that's just a wound that's being asked to be narrated and fed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to succeed in relationship is, did I show up to the best of my ability? Was I honest? Did I ask for what I wanted and I needed? Yeah. You win. Even if the relationship ends, you're succeeding because now you're moving towards a relationship that's aligned. Most of us spend our lives holding on to something that is not meeting us because we're afraid that what we truly desire won't show up. So we live in the wound of it not showing up.
Totally.
Yeah.
This was great.
Oh my God.
And there's like 10 more questions, so you're going to have to come back.
Can you
I would
come
love to
back?
come back.
I was
Yeah.
wondering if he and I need our own podcast.
We just get right into it.
Yep.
I'm serious. This
She
is my
loves talking about relationships.
favorite thing ever.
I can tell.
She
That's
loves
great.
it.
Yeah, and it's all fascinating to me now
Mhm.
because I've been in such completely and totally different places in my life, in my relationships. And it's like I'm starting to see so clearly that it's just fascinating.
Mhm.
Especially like why we stay
Mhm.
when, it's just, I'm fascinated by it all. And I think for me, it's like seeing other people and helping other people navigate through leaving in some ways.
I think it's the most important is like someone witnessing someone else doing something they're
Totally.
afraid to do
Mhm.
provides the evidence they can do
Sure.
it. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Have you ever had Dom on the podcast?
No, but I want to at some
Mhm.
point.
For
yeah,
sure.
I think that'd
Yeah.
be great. I'm
Yeah.
sure the stoners
The
wanna-
stoners
they would
will
love
love
it.
it.
What about Dr. Emmett?
He's been on before.
When it was just audio.
it was when we were still just audio.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's close this out when you guys can keep talking. But Mark, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Where can the stoners find your book?
You can find the book at liberated-love.com, anywhere you buy the books. If you want to support a local bookstore in the U.S., you can use bookshop.org.
Oh,
Yeah. And on the audiobook, I'm a big audiobook guy.
me
so
too.
I wanted to make it special. So at the end of each chapter is actually an unscripted conversation between my wife and I about each chapter. Yeah, about what we learned from it, circumstances of our own relationship we go a little deeper on. And thanks so much for having me. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
course.
Thank you,
Loved
stoners.
it.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was late.
stoners. This was so good. And you all really came through on the questions.
You guys really did.
Yeah,
and
those
for,
were
the,
good.
for the questions we didn't answer, we'll either have him back or like we'll get to your questions because they were all really good. So we love
Amazing.
that.
Yes.
And we'll see you guys next week.
bye, stoners.
This podcast has been brought to you by Podcast Nation and Hopetown Entertainment.